Spring is the time when nature awakens, and people are eager to witness this awakening in all its glory. This may be the subconscious desire to fill the world in all its colors. Snowdrops or Crocus alatovicus shoot out first, followed by tulips, irises, and many other flowers. They delight us, infusing air with new fragrances, emotions, and good mood. That's why people cultivate new varieties of flowers, trees, and shrubs of all colors of the rainbow, so that the eyes could rest after a long winter and its white-gray nondescript gamut. Prunus canson is an extremely popular variety. Look at those big flowers. This kind is cold-resistant, which is important for our region. Although not all trees survived last winter because it was phenomenally cold out here. And this one, in the very center of Almaty, seems to feel great. Its fruits are small, plain, pea-sized, black and bitter. The main attribute Sakura is valued for is its flowering. In the last century, Japanese delegation presented the city with 8 sakura trees. Today, pedestrians stop at sakura despite the rainy weather. Giggling girls are trying to take a selfie with this peculiar Japanese guest. Who can blame them for doing so? Its beauty is extraordinary. Some flowers literally pop out in early spring. Hyacinth, for example. The area near the Almaty city administration is adorned with flower bed of these lovely little flowers. Masters of landscape design used these flowers to lay out the city coat of arms with the leopard in the center. We are lucky to meet Gulzada Kaldybayeva, the author of this wonderful exhibition, in person. How long will these hyacinths blossom? In such weather, they will please the eyes of our residents for 3 weeks. What about sunny days? In sunny weather, at least 1.5 or 2 weeks. Colossal work. How did you do that? Do you use some sort of a stencil? Drawing this is hard enough, I suppose. Of course. The emblem of the city is very difficult to make. 25 workers planted those flowers in October, counting every meter. This area is 125 square meters. We plotted on every meter to have it add up to an image we needed.
25 квадратных метров. И каждый метр мы выводили, чтобы рисунок вывести четкие границы этого барса.
How many plants are there? Almost 10,000. 9,875 hyacinths. And what about shrubs, trees? Which one blooms earliest? Among shrubs in our region now it's forsythia, bright yellow drops of color on a green background. Forsythia pops out flowers first. The leaves sprout out only after flowering. At this time, forsythia blooms quite well. Then, here you can see sakura, which also blooms very well. Prunus canson, this species adapts well in Almaty. Also our spirea. Forsythia is easy to find wherever it blooms. Abundant flowers on every branch attract first bees. We found these shrubs in one of the parks. This shrub has an amazing story. Here, have a look at this forsythia. This is a favorite plant of landscape designers and gardeners. It blooms before anything else. Notice those bright yellow flowers, shining like traffic lights. Very delightful. The origin of the name forsythia is quite interesting. It is named after William Forsyth. He was the head gardener of the English Royal Society. This man had brought the first forsythia to Europe from China. How well do plants adapt in cities? How do they feel? How they adapt to people? How do they survive in megalopolises near the smoky thermal power stations surrounded by car exhausts and smoke? Almaty is a city that resides in palms of the mountains and is paying for its unusual landscape. Half ring of mountains around the city, with bad environmental situation. There is no wind circulation. Some plants are quite fragile and cannot withstand the endless stress. Some survive. This year, the authorities of Almaty decided to plant trees along the main traffic artery of the city, the Al-Farabi Avenue. They planted adult conifers between the opposite lanes.
Проспект Аль-Фараби был переименован в проспект Аль-Фараби с улицы Водозаборной.
Al-Farabi Avenue used to be called Vodozaborная Street and was renamed in 1975. Since then, more than 30 species of trees have been planted on the dividing strip and along the sides of the avenue. Time has shown that the most resistant trees to gas pollution, drought and drought winds are Tian Shan spruce, pine and chestnut. Our choice was not accidental. We consulted with leading scientific institutions, Botanic Garden and Agrarian University. Therefore, chose these plants. Another aspect, these plants are local. They grow in our nature reserves and mountains. They are adapted to our natural conditions. Also, Tian Shan spruce is a brand of Almaty.
Они произрастают в наших питомниках, у нас в горах. Они адаптированы к нашим условиям, и это, в конце концов, эти ели тяньшанские, это бренд города, можно сказать, бренд Алматы.
How do trees survive in big cities, along the tracks where dense traffic of thousands of cars jarring the asphalt all around the clock all year round? These are exhausts, lead, zinc, heavy metals, and during winter it's also salt from beneath cars' wheels. They are trying to solve this problem in Almaty, and I think everything is working out.
Самые большие у нас ели около 7 метров высотой были.
The largest spruces were about 7 meters high. Earth clods were 120 by 1 meter. It was about a cube of earth in a clod. We made measurements for the landing pit with a margin of 120 by 120, 120 meters of depth as well. We dug up all the soil, gravel and debris, loaded it on truck and dumped it, and instead fill it with fertile humus, rich black soil. Preparations were conducted with the recommendations of specialists in mind, following their techniques. We've made a drainage layer of rubble. There's a nutrition layer for trees. We also used traditional methods of planting conifer trees. We used all the methods to ensure 100% survival rate.
Все методы, чтобы обеспечить 100% приживаемость.
Spring is the time for collective cleanups, subotniks. During these days, responsible Almaty residents helped planting large trees on the Eastern Bypass Highway, and not just there. When sap starts to flow in plants, it's time to decorate the squares, boulevards and parks. It's very important not to miss this period. This way, even the most capricious pine trees will take root with ease. Such events are important for our city, country and planet in general. They provide an opportunity to make a contribution to gardening. What are your impressions? Look at my hands. I actually got to plant. I'm very glad that our positive, friendly team came today, this Saturday morning, to plant trees and enrich this city, our favorite city, with additional oxygen. What about plants in Botanic gardens? The main Botanic garden of Almaty, a patriarch with history, once was the hallmark of the city. And the cherry on the cake has always been its greenhouse, built in the 70s of the last century. The collection of tropical plants is quite impressive. I dived into the thickets of bamboo. Have a look, such tall trunks, very elastic plant. There are so many different arts and crafts projects made of those. I remember that in childhood we bought fishing rods made of bamboo trunks. I also read about terrible torture in China, where prisoners on death row were laid on young bamboo sprouts. Within 24 hours, they pierced the victim, germinating 50 centimeters into the flesh. The name orangeria, greenhouse, came into use in Russian from French and comes from orange. Europeans were growing oranges in first greenhouses. And today, after stepping through the doorframe, we find ourselves in the real jungle behind glass walls. Our guide, Tatyana Vasilievna Murzova, came here right after graduating from biology department and works here to this day.
В общем-то, они в основном растения с континента Америки.
These plants are from the continent of America, tropical plants. They used to be called the pineapple family because these plants gave origin to our pineapple. There were 54 species, some unfortunately have been damaged. These are the bromelaceae plants. They are also called potted plants because the water is concentrated inside the plant. This is what frogs would inhabit if they grow in their homeland.
Вот это вот это бромелевое растение, которое цветет, оно еще их называют вазонным растением, потому что водичка собирается внутри растения. Здесь даже у себя на родине поселяются лягушки.
This is the department of tropical plants. 22 degrees on the thermometer. Is this normal temperature? At the moment, yes. If it had always been like this, it would be great. In the summer, the temperature rises up to 40 degrees. In winter, it gets quite chilly. What is this plant? This is Bilbergia pyramidalis, the bromeliads plant family. Pineapples grow on this kind of plants. The plant is prickly because at the edges it is covered with needles.
Колючее, потому что у него по краям листочки все покрыты этими иголочками.
I couldn't even imagine that pineapples grow on such small bushes. Peduncle appears in the center of the plant. Inflorescence is formed on top. It is similar to our pineapple, which we eat. It makes you wonder how many aliens from hot tropical countries are here, of which we dreamed in childhood, read in books about long journeys. It is as if we moved to the jungle of Amazon, giant leaves as big as a fan. You can't help but imagine a monkey or a snake jumping out, or maybe even something worse than that. Tell me, what is this plant famous for? This is Strelitzia Nikolai, but it is also called the traveler tree, because this plant collects moisture in the bosoms of its leaves. When travelers get lost and they have no water, they break off that leaf and drink from it. And it grows beautifully. Maybe you saw Strelitzia's flower. It looks like a bird's head. Yes, a small one. And this one is big. This is from the same family, only with bigger flowers. It's a pity it doesn't grow locally. We really need water in the desert for travelers. Tropical plants do not have a rest period. They grow constantly because there is no winter in the tropics. Here, have a look at a bright representative, Ficus elastica. So tall. It's interesting that it has aerial roots. In the natural environment, wet environment, these roots take moisture directly from the air. 17% of this plant is natural rubber. Perhaps this is the oldest plant in the greenhouse, Cycas revoluta or sago palm. Can you imagine it outlasted dinosaurs? Tatiana Vasilievna, what is the secret of sago palm's vitality? It's prickly, by the way. Yes, very prickly. If we cut off all the roots, all the leaves, this plant will take root all the same. It survived due to its vitality, this ability to take root almost from bare trunk.
Живучести, то, что оно способно приживаться почти только из одного ствола, оно, наверное, поэтому и выжило, так долго живет на земле у нас.
What is it you are holding? A cone from this plant. You can't say that this is a flower. This cone consists of such parts that looks like petals. It blossoms here and it blooms in another department. It is required that there be a male and a female plant. Where does this plant originate from? South Asia, Japan and Australia. In Australia, it is forbidden to export it because it was exported in large quantities. In Japan, sago palm leaves are used in medicine. Garden specialists, botanists, are fanatically devoted to the work and are ready to talk for hours about their exclusive plants. We are waiting for an excursion to the rock garden. All my life I have lived in Kazakhstan, and it was here in this tiny rock garden area where I saw some plants for the first time ever. Moreover, as it turns out, these are the endemic plants of Kazakhstan. This is just amazing. What are you especially proud of? Of our plants, first of all, we are proud of these giant onions and, of course, tulips. And we also have an amazing plant in Kavilei Semirechenskia or Nedzvetskia Semirechenskia. This is the only place in Kazakhstan where it grows. Here we are trying to protect it, grow it, and show it to everyone who is interested in it. This plant looks like a huge dill. I smell it, but it doesn't smell like dill. But I see that this is an umbellifer. What is it? This plant is called the ferula. It is not just decorative, it is also a medicinal plant used in folk medicine. And some types of ferula are used in traditional modern medicine. Another discovery. I know perfectly well that in our mountains you can find wild raspberries, currants, bud gooseberries with such berries. Does this gooseberry grow in Jungarium? Yes, this amazing plant grows in Jungarian Alatau, which is used in cultivation in modern varieties of gooseberry. This is a wonderful berry. Are they sour, edible? Yes, they are sour, edible. Let's try. Quenches thirst in hot weather. Incredibly sour, very elastic, crunchy, still greenish though, but unusually juicy. Cultivars are sweeter and larger. The wild ones are a bit more sour, but perhaps they store more vitamins. Definitely. Yes, because there are always more in wild berries. This is why I love Viburnum berries. Yes, in Viburnum there are many elements that are not found in our berries. Over the past century, tremendous changes have taken place in nature, changing not only the vegetation cover but also landscapes. People are embedded in ecosystems. To preserve the gene pool of rare species of natural flora, botanists collect seeds and plant them in the Botanic garden. We see carefully collected endemics of the Transil-Alatau and the Shuili mountains. Another discovery for me in a rock garden, human hide onion. Is that an endemic plant? Yes, it is a rare endemic plant that grows in southern Kazakhstan in the Zhambyl region in the floodplain of the Aksu River. This is Allium schemense. We brought one single plant, then planted it and it spawned. It also propagates by seed. Not only is it an ornamental plant, it is both a food and medicinal plant. If you plant it outside the garden, will it grow? It will, but it needs specific conditions because it grows on rocky soil in its natural environment. Naturally, it would require recreating same or similar conditions. Another rare plant, Nedvedskaya semirechynskaya. It grows only in the Joly mountains in the south of Kazakhstan. Take a look at those little boxes that look like dragons, described by traveler Nedvedskiy. It was back in the 19th century. This plant grows in the south of Kazakhstan. Of course, it is endemic. From the collection of floral ornamental plants, Oriental poppy stands out. Residents of Almaty love their botanic garden, often come here despite the weather. Pheasants and huge wood pigeons, naturally extremely careful, here act like masters of these shady alleys. How often do you visit the park? My office is nearby, and if there is an opportunity, I always try to stop by because we know that the ecology in Almaty is not the best. So I think it's healthy to come here. What draws you here? It's spring, everything blooms. I want to talk to nature, listen to birds singing, smell lilacs. You can't express it with words or video.
Запах сирени. Это все прекрасно, это не передать словами и не передать на видео.
Walking along the alleys of the Botanic Garden, we interview Almaty residents about what else would they want here. How do they imagine our Botanic Garden? We have been walking in the Botanic Garden for a long time. We, as pensioners, were given the opportunity to visit for free. But the administration has a small budget. They cannot maintain so many hectares in order. There are many fallen trees, boughs. They rot and infect healthy trees. That's what we worry about.
Они гниют и тем самым заражают здоровые деревья. Вот у нас об этом душа очень болеет.
The Botanic Garden of Almaty was founded in 1932. More than 80 years have passed. A huge territory in the foothills. Once it was irrigated, there were reservoirs. There is a river nearby, but now it leaves much to be desired. It is desolated. However, there are people who care. They decided to reconstruct the National Garden, drafted a plan, raised money, agreed upon it with the public and started reconstruction works. This is not a one-day project. Will there be new plants, those that didn't grow here before? Yes, sure. After all main works are completed this year, next spring we're planning to begin planting. A group of specialists is working on this, including specialists from the Institute of Botany, as well as experts from other countries. In particular, there are specialists from Almaty, Poland, Portugal.
Работают специалисты из Алматы, из Польши, из Португалии. То есть это такая совместная работа, в результате которой, вырабатывается список именно тех растений.
This is a teamwork, as a result of which a list of those plants, trees, shrubs that will be planted here is produced. And of course, there will be new species among them. The group approaches this very carefully. The main principle, do no harm. We know a lot of cases in history when imported plants were aggressive towards the local ones.
Мы знаем немало случаев, немало примеров в истории, да, когда завозились какие-то растения,
совершенно точно.
вели себя достаточно агрессивно по отношению к местной фауне.
In the meantime, the park is quiet. Only bulldozer buzzing somewhere far away, preparing a new pond for the garden. But landscape architect Nella Lapteva understands the complexity of the project and plans to harmoniously combine the Museum of Living Plants with the favorite resting place of residents while not infringing on science. The principle of reconstruction begins with the fact that we want to carefully preserve what we have. This means that whole flora of the Botanic garden will not suffer. We'll save all the trees. The classical layout of the northern parterre, which was created during the Soviet era, will also be preserved, because this is our history, our pride. It was designed very carefully. We'll only add a little water to it. Not talking about water collection, there are plants from around the world here. Will the identity of the park be preserved? How do you plan to reconstruct the park? Botanical geographical principle will stay the same. Nothing will be changed here. We only reconstruct the coating here. You see, this asphalt is 50 years old or more. We irrigate without entering these zones. We need to lay down the infrastructure and we'll do it under the road. Then we'll change the top layer. All this magnificence will be untouched. The water will be brought from up above. As in Soviet times, this garden was irrigated using Arik irrigation system, so it will stay the same way.
Мы заводим воду, как вы уже знаете, сверху, и как в советское время этот сад поливался арычным орошением, вот так оно и останется.
Decades ago, there were several sources of water supply. But the big city grows and passes the precious moisture. Some rivers have changed their riverbeds. Therefore, experts get water from the mountain river Kerim Kulak. We'll have to raise its water for a couple of meters. It's very difficult, but only then everything will return to the old natural system. This was half a century ago, a network of rapid aqueducts, ariks, along which ripe apples rolled with water in the fall. They irrigated the garden with a wonderful natural irrigation. Here is the northern parterre. Many trees will be planted there. At the moment, they are represented mainly by coniferous trees, a lot of spruces as well. As you know, they do not give a lot of shadow. Therefore, beautiful ornamental trees will be also planted there. This is a decorative cherry. It doesn't form fruits, but has a broad crown. We selected trees that do not hide our city and the expositions around us and produce the necessary shadow over the benches where you can admire all this magnificence. What do you consider the pride of the park? Which exposition? And how do you want to emphasize this beauty? This is a hard question. There is an exciting pride of the park Japanese garden. In addition, there is a rock garden, a collection of perennials, a pharmaceutical garden. There is a magnificent exposition of fruit, a collection of Sivers apple trees, which academician Jangaliev collected. We don't compete with them. Our ego should not interfere today. The only thing that we add is a large field from the side of Almaty, which was used to store fallen trees. We cleaned the dead wood, took out the mountains of garbage, and will create a new parterre in its place. Since movement of the city is changing, It is convenient for people to enter the park from different parts of the city. There will be a new parterre from the south, and it will be in a different style, in the style of post-natural plantings.
С разных частей города. И вот с юга появится такой новый партер, и он уже будет в другом стиле, в стиле постприродных посадок.
The idea of reconstruction and the seriousness of approach to this project are impressive. We'll wait for the results to see how the main Botanic garden will greet its new visitors after reconstruction. I hope in a year we'll be able to show it in all its glory in our show.